Welcome, everyone. This is the January 7th, 2025 Jail and Zones production user call. We have Chris, Nick, Philip, Jan, Dave, Mark, and myself, Michael, and Happy New Year, everyone. I know a bunch of us have done some holiday hacking, so perhaps we can start with some reports of the nifty things you did. Dave, what is new in jail metadata?
Nothing much other than it's looking good so far. The only thing I've found that would be nice to change is when you go jls-libxo json-v, you would think the verbose would give you all the settings, but it doesn't. So I'm advocating in the favor of making libxo actually send out all the settings it knows about rather than the settings that were known the last time it was built. I think we're ready to ask the wider community for feedback, but for that, it's probably necessary to get it committed first because the people who are going to be building from source is probably relatively small. And I'd like to have the people who've written jail managers come back and give us their feedback.
Cool. So the action item is to reach out, or it sounds like you have something ready for. Cool. Fantastic.
I mean, it would be very fragile anyway to rely that a JSON response is never extended with new fields. I don't have much pity with those who rely on that assumption that. But yeah.
So there are two aspects here. One of them was, in general, it would be nice if -v printed out all the fields, but what happens then is the current set of fields that are printed out includes ones where a new line may be present, but the documentation implies that that's not the case. So there's a bug about that, which let's see, we found it earlier today, didn't we, Jan? Let me have a look.
Yeah, it's in the backlog of the IRC channel of hash FreeBSD-jails.
23283, it sounds right. Yeah, I'll drop this in the minutes. So this bug is that jails doesn't handle new lines consistently. And we have kind of two choices. One is to amend the docs to say, be careful, you could get anything. And the other one is to amend the behavior so that it doesn't do that. So that's sort of two separate points there, Michael. One of them's for the metadata and one of them's just a general bug that we should fix.
Are you dropping that in chat or the doc?
Oh, it's the one there that whoever wrote that in.
Maybe I missed it.
Is there a reason why that isn't escaped via Strivis and friends?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, thank you.
It might have been there for like 20 years, 25 years, so who knows?
Can you think of a use case desiring the new lines, or it's just sort of an artifact from the good old days?
An horrible example which the jail command can't avoid to support is paths containing new lines. You can have
containing new lines. Did I hear that correctly?
If the jail path basically a path can contain anything except a null byte, including control characters, and you can have backspace control characters in your path.
To behind the bike sheds and give them a stiff talking to, followed by
I mean,
a warning not to do that. Spaces, I'm fine. I grew up in the Windows era, I get that, but new lines, no.
UTF-8 emojis, UTF-8 emojis.
Yeah, that's
non-splitting spaces.
Legit. Yeah.
Okay, well,
separating spaces.
Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole to go down. I get that, but if you're pretty sure that this one behavior is neither desired nor useful, then there it is. Have you gotten any attention from Jamie yet? No, this looks pretty fresh. This is
last year,
a few days, way last year.
Let's bring it up here. Just have a look at it.
Cool.
The main thing is when we add the metadata, we need to address this issue. We then need to do it the same way and fix the man page and say, hey, not only could you have emojis, but you could also have spaces and gasp even new lines. Or we could say, that's stupid, but this new value could have spaces. And if the new value then has allowed spaces and new lines, then it makes sense not to output it in the jails verbose, but only to output it in the jails JSON version, for example. That will be one option. Doesn't matter which way we jump. We just got to pick one way so that the new code does things the right way.
And it's new lines in JSON output or in configure where exactly?
If you go just jails-v, that produces a vaguely tabular looking format that in theory has new line, has a single line per jail. I'd have to read the exact bug to figure out what it is.
Yeah, no worries. Just trying to get the correct context for those who might bump
into it. Basically, the output of jails is assumed to be, here we go. The man page clearly states each jail is represented by one row which contains space-separated values of the listed parameters, except they can have new lines.
So we already have support for that problem in libc. It's the family of str-this and str-unvis functions to apply quoting, and FreeBSD recently-ish added that to the fs-stub parser so that you can now put all the crap you want in your device names and mount paths and still have the fs-stub work.
So you're saying I can have emoji boot environments?
Oh dear.
Yeah, sure. If you know that this boot environment is a pile of excrement, you can then
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Use the correct emoji as a double-wide UTF-8 gloved. Your terminal supports that. Good luck adding that into the video console driver. I don't think we have a font with emoji support in there.
Yeah.
Despite retiring the old 8-bit only syscons code, I don't think VT has full emoji and arrow bullshit support because the font is larger than the whole boot partition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Then let's keep it actionable. Cool. Bug noted. I'm not sure if that's yet a t-shirt idea. That said, yeah, I won't worry about, say, libc at this point. Chris M., I know you often get dragged away. Do you have any news to report from holiday excitement? Pile of poop. Okay, thank you.
Not really. Actually, I have a question, but I would wait for the end because I suppose this might open up another can of worms. I don't
know. Could you get it on the radar? What's the context, if anything?
It's the use of mdconfig in a jail.
Okay, Chris.
I'm gonna put it in the minutes at the end.
Okay,
that's
cool.
Right.
You did great, perfect. Philip, it sounds like you've been jailing a mail server moving off of Google. Are there any tips at this point, or is there a blog we can follow along, or a wiki page, or some nifty thing to get us caught up with you?
Well, at this point, I don't have a blog anywhere, and it has a whole lot of layers. As I've thought about it, there used to be things like YU host and other application servers, and where you could just have jails installed on it, like the TrueNAS core. It'd be nice if that was available in the future. I mean, that's a huge sort of a project, so I'm not volunteering. But there seems to be pieces that may be useful in the future on like either CBSD or Bastille BSD or things related to those that have templates and easier management of multiple jails that you can just install from a template and go from there instead of doing it all by hand.
That is indeed a broad topic that's come up at length. Dave with OCI working, etc. Are we somewhere a baby step closer to be at a meta package with a bunch of things for a jail, or a jail tarred up and shipped as in a store or something? Nice. or whoever wants to comment, because I know we talked about it maybe 3 to 6 months ago. I'll just say app store for my jail server, mail server, just something like that.
So the short answer is yes. Let's talk later on about that. That's my OCI update.
Fantastic. Okay. Cool. Let's see. I will just go super quickly, rather. I've been working on OccamBSD Imagine and Propagate quite a bit. Maybe you've seen that on the Fediverse. You can sit down and run the test suite and get a package-based VM image, and it's leveraging the heck out of now package-based. Thank you, Jan, for your help there. And it's has always leveraged VM images out of release engineering, but I had to construct a fake source path with like 2 files and a fake and put them in an object directory to trick the tools into working. They are a script for creating VMs, but that script is only designed to work within the release engineering goodies. Anyway, there's a link there. Enjoy.
Michael, do you want to give us like a 5-second overview of what these 3 things are?
I could. I'm thinking to do perhaps a video just to properly explain all the things going on, because broadly, I never want to see an installer again in my life. I think that it is a crime that many projects create accidental release engineers, and that's like someone working in production and their new NIC needs a patch, and then suddenly they find themselves a release engineer despite them really being a scientist. And I think my take on that would be, damn it, Jim, I'm a scientist, not a release engineer. So OccamBSD now has a patch directory, and what it aims to do is create small system deployments using build options to exclude components of the system. However, you can create a completely default release with it if you use a default flag. Now, it adds to that a step for, say, creating base packages. And as of, I believe, yesterday, my Propagate tool, which pulls down base packages from the ether and puts them either in a jail, a boot environment, or a VM image using the VM image tools I just mentioned, it can now pull from the results of OccamBSD. So in 2 or 3 commands, you can have a highly customized FreeBSD build as a release engineer wearing that hat, and then push it out to a jail, a VM image, or a boot environment, boot that right after the fact, and just hopefully take that whole release engineering process down to a few moments. And because VM images are a rather remarkable thing from FreeBSD that boot on legacy BIOS and UEFI, and while they call them VM images, they're nothing more than a stock installation of FreeBSD, such that I consider them boot images, not VM images. There's nothing V about them. If they're on a virtual machine, they're a VM image. If they're on a hardware machine, they're a hardware image. So I've worked out the steps to mirror 2 devices, be it in software or on real hardware. And because I have the infrastructure to retrieve images, I've thrown in the ability to retrieve Debian images, OmniOS images, RouterOS images, do a classic Windows repack with an auto unattend XML file. I just noticed I still have memtest x86 in there that might need some wiring up. But when a project produces a well-named consistent location image, like Debian latest or something, and goes to the trouble of putting an architecture in there, because it's not fun to have like Debian latest hypothetically and then Debian latest ARM64. It's like, well, okay, no, hold on. If you make it Debian latest AMD 64 and Debian latest ARM64, you can easily predictably retrieve them without modifying your scripts or path or everything every few days, whatever. Every time there's a build. Looking at you, OmniOS, who doesn't handle that well, and I would love to have VM images from OpenBSD, NetBSD, and others, but those projects that have them. And so Imagine retrieves those, if you wish, pushes them to hardware devices, mirrored software devices, is aware of Z-pool acrobatics and renames, and I think we may have to move to a world of all UUIDs for GPT IDs and things, because things can conflict right, left, and center, but that's a whole different conversation. And yeah, and if you simply download those tools and do sh OccamBSD.sh or any of them, it'll give usage. And there's generally some tips at the top of each script on what's going on. And the test suite explains some of that too, and just steps through them. And I can give it maybe a demo later or on the Beehive call, which is a little closer to home. But there you have it. Any questions? And I'll be first to admit it's Byzantine, but it's also encountered a bunch of, say, makefs bugs. And Mark Johnson is looking at one right now. Thank you, Mark. It was one I actually reported in December, but I bumped into in a different path. It's encountered GPT bugs in makefs and Gpart. It's encountered lots of build option bugs over the years. So even if, like VMRC years ago, it just simply finds bugs in the tools, well, it's a valid exercise. One thing that's on my radar is to just wire up a simple way to push the images coming out of this to VM Beehive. But that sounds a lot like a Thursday Beehive topic rather than a jail topic. Anywho. Chris suggested he might have a rabbit hole. Dave, do you want to go OSI update in the interim?
Yeah, so where we're at with OCI jails, OCI containers is we have some paperwork around naming to sort out, which I think we're almost done on. And I have some, I guess, test containers for people to use on my GitHub site. Link will arrive shortly. And over the break, I got the last 3 or 4 things I wanted to document working, but not yet documented.
Thank you for fixing that.
So
yeah.
Let me just have a look at the notes I made. So yeah, so we're at the point where feedback is going to be really useful here. You should be able to start a container. You should be able to fetch a container from, at least from my GitHub org, which is a placeholder for the official FreeBSD release version when we get that sorted. You should be able to build a custom container with a tool called Builder and run a local registry. And that is 80% of the basics kind of done. So I've got all of that working. And in the next day or two, I will have finished writing up my notes for that. And then I'll send out a call for testing on the usual mailing lists. There's some bits that still elude me, and that is custom networking for the jails and ZFS datasets being mounted in the right place inside them. And I don't know yet whether it works, but I don't know how to drive it, or it's not ready yet. But it's looking good. And I would guess we are 2 to 4 weeks away from having project blessed packages on Docker Hub and FreeBSD GitHub organization for people to pull and push, people to pull from.
Is that a baby step towards an app store from which one retrieves Philip's mail server? More
than a baby step.
Yeah, it's like 90% of the work. So if you think of this way, classic use case for most people is going to be fetch an existing empty release container. So it's got the FreeBSD bits, your equivalent of base.txt and kernel. And then you will fetch that locally, create an image based on that, add your bits, your special source, your mail server, whatever, and then package that up and push it up to your registry rather than the FreeBSD one. So that's pretty straightforward. And then you're going to want to fetch that somewhere and run it with a couple of overlays like user/local etc mail.conf or whatever. Yeah. And that's kind of all you really need. The networking and ZFS parts might be problematic. I don't know. But for most stuff. So let's a good example. I made a custom image that has DNS dist in it. It's a nice what is DNS dist? It's a DNS sort of proxy. It's HA proxy, but for DNS. And it has a config file. It runs as a daemon. It doesn't need anything awkward like in-jail logging, or it has no mutable state. So it's a great example for containerization. And I worked through doing all of that. It's just fine. It just works.
Cool. Did I get DNS dist correct, or was it camel case?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, cool. And we should actually link to I cannot remember whose example it is. One of our other OCI people did a fantastic one.
Doug?
Not Doug.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, and if you have your repo link, feel free to drop that in chat or doc.
I'll drop the link in the mailing list. Sorry, I'll drop the link for these other versions, other examples later in the call. But keep an eye on the mailing list and on Mastodon for a call for testing, and then have at it.
Okay, that said, if the code were 99.9% ready, is spinning up an official repo a thing, or it's left to third parties who will simply retrieve official FreeBSD bits and go from there and create their own repos? What do you think that looks like to the user?
So this is the bit we're doing. So
a year from now.
Yeah, so it took a bit of paperwork organizing, but we've got access to Docker Hub's FreeBSD organization.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And if you go GitHub, it's probably best to, let me just give you a 30-second guided tour.
Please, absolutely. Do you want to share your screen?
I will. Yep. That's what we want. Yep. So we're going to go share here. So if you just squint your eyes and pretend that instead of seeing Skunkworks, it says FreeBSD. So in fact, we can go to the FreeBSD one because at the moment, I don't want to make them public, because if I do this, then we're stuck with the tags. So basically, we have these three package flavors here. If I click on minimal, you'll see it's got three different tags. So the key thing with the tagging is 14 will always be the latest released 14. So it might be 14.3 or 14.4, or it might be 14.0. 14.2 will be the latest patch of the 14.2 series. So 14.2 P10, for example. And 14.2 P0 will always be 14.2 as it was released out of the box. So and talking about this, we cut up into two use cases. One of them is I am a sysadmin and I want to know that what I deployed to production is exactly what it was 3 months ago. You would use this very specific 14.2 P0 release. If you're writing software that runs on FreeBSD, or you want to test against FreeBSD, you're probably more interested in using one of the sloppier tags, maybe just 14, so that you don't have to keep updating your CI stuff. And every time there's a new version of FreeBSD released, your CI things would just roll over from 14.1 to 14.2 to 14.3, and then you would fix your bugs. So that's kind of how we fetch them. And if I go back to my URL here, so Skunkworks. There we go. We can sort of see them here, and it's weird. It says that they haven't been downloaded. They've been downloaded 0 times, because I definitely have fetched them. Yeah. So the usual story. I'll be updating my docs privately on my HackMD, and then they'll go to my website for a call for testing. Yeah, but that's really all there is to it, and the rest of it just kind of works like we've got in the docs.
Could you back up a page to the 3 different categories, FreeBSD minimal and FreeBSD something?
I go back again.
Dynamic.
Yeah. So I think I already covered this on my blog. So
cool. Okay. Shoot some links as appropriate, but is that dynamically linked and statically linked, I trust? Oh, there's
one. Yeah. So these actually end up being in order. Static is the very, very sort of bare bones base one. And it's got TLS certs, a minimal password file, the smallest possible term cap, and TZ data. And it's the sort of thing you would use to run a fully static Go or Rust binary, basically, that doesn't need like a libc. It's going to be pretty useless. But if you're compiling stuff like that, then great. And then dynamic is the same thing again, but now you have libc and shared libraries, and you can probably run most binaries or tools, but it doesn't have a shell and it doesn't have a package manager. And that means you're going to have to test everything to see what's in it. And minimal is the next layer up, and it's got all of the above plus a Unix shell and a package manager. So you can go package install foo. I don't have my DNS dist notes on this laptop, on this desktop, otherwise I'd share them. But basically, when I was going through building DNS dist, it was kind of interesting. It was like all the bits, minimal sounds like what I'd need. And I kept finding more and more things that were needed. So for example, it needs UTX. I forget what UTX does, but it needs that. That's not in minimal. That's in
session database.
Yeah, there's lots of little things like this. One of the things I tried needed a syslog. It was very grumpy that there was no logging, so I needed something for that as well. And the write-up needs to include covering all of these things. Yeah, that's really all there is to it.
Cool. I'm bringing up your page. Oh, it's that same page. Okay, cool. Is there a separate docs page, or is that hiding in overview maybe? No, that's overview of your repo.
Yeah, I'm just going to modify that. And what was the other bit?
I see hedge doc coming. Here we go. Same one. Yes. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, cool. Any questions for Dave? I put the docs in and the repo in the minutes.
Just one.
Yes, please, Jan.
Just came up. Are the current versions of Podman and thereby OCI jail compatible with normal base system jail, or do they fight over resource allocation?
All the things running here. I've got normal jails. I've got some legacy. What are they? IOCell jails, not even IOCage, but IOCell.
Oh wow!
Yeah, okay.
Some stuff, and it all just plays nicely together.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, my area of foot gunning is pretty small at this stage. Maybe other people will find areas where it goes horribly wrong. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, going from Vienna to Vienna. Chris, you had some questions about mdconfig inside a jail. Interesting. Which
actually, I have to apologize
because
that's actually kind of my question. It is kind of one of the remnants of the stuff that I prepared for EuroBSDCon, but I never really got around to ask the question. So I have to say that my memory about the problem that I ran into is a little bit spotty about it, and I noticed that my notes also aren't really up to snuff. So I have to apologize that I do not really remember the actual error that I encountered, but I think it was basically, let me start from the beginning. What I attempted was I wanted to set up a memory disk within a jail. And obviously, I learned through that process that there's file systems that are simply not jails aware, and they will probably simply not work like UFS. However, what was weird was I managed to expose all the relevant device nodes through FFS and managed to set up a memory disk within the jail while being in the jail. And I got an MD0 device node, but I was unable to use it. I was basically, it was there, but whenever I tried to actually write something or do something with it, even a DD, if I remember correctly, it just kind of broke and fell apart. And I was kind of unexpected because I figured at least a DD should at least work, I assume, but it didn't.
I'm not sure because normally you would never do such a thing to expose block-like devices to a jail. Because, yeah, if you give the jail raw access to your disks, then it can bypass any file system permissions. And the other thing, if it was already attached, it could be a problem if it's already at the geom level consumed, so that you try to overwrite something of the metadata which geom protects after testing, or I assure you haven't just exposed the mdctl device, but that you have also exposed the md0.
Yes, I did. I was exposed both because otherwise I would not be able to actually create the device because I had to do mdctl.
I don't know if there's a safety net to prevent you from opening disk-like devices from inside a jail.
So then I assume it's kind of by design, right?
Well, I don't remember that because you really aren't supposed to expose those, but an MD device would be more or less fine. But the big caveat there is that you can crash the host by using a malloc-backed giant MD device and then filling it up.
You're right. That is true.
Maybe TempFS also.
There's no dedicated jailware resource accounting for MD because the idea is that you don't expose the mdctl device.
I don't think TempFS is that even listed in the list?
Not TempFS.
I suggested as a possibility because you could.
I've certainly
blown those.
Well, meaningless to be jailware. The only important thing is the size and inode limit, which limits the maximum resident kernel memory size.
Oh, TempFS is jails aware. Okay,
it is.
Cool.
Yeah, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, all right.
Well, Chris, does that answer some of your questions?
Yeah, it kind of gives me a couple new pointers. I need to try out. I'm not completely sure whether I tried TempFS. I'm gonna try that. I think.
Oh, full circle. What was your original goal?
Well, oh my God. So the original idea was, and this is where I kind of, hit the wall. I was hoping to set up basically I was using Beehive inside jails.
Right.
And I figured I wanted to prepare a disk image with all the relevant, file systems and all the files already on the file system, so I can just, boot the system without actually having to use the installer. And clearly that does not work with UFS. And that's where I kind of realized, okay, this is probably not the smartest way of doing things. And then instead of doing that, I use the automation that is already in the BSD install to just automate the usual, the regular installation utilities actually. So I kind of circumvented. I solved my problem in a different manner, basically, and then I never really got back to trying to figure out how to deal with the memory backed or with the virtual device node, basically. But it's still interesting, if I could actually try and use a memory disk, for example. It will not allow me to prepare basically a full-blown disk unless I set up a FreeBSD system with a CFS file system. That might work. But then again, I would not be able to prepare a EFI partition because MS-DOS file system is also not jails aware.
So
they work around for both.
Yeah, okay. Well, I could probably prepare a disk and then just delete that, for example. Yeah.
No, what I mean is there is a fairly recent, fairly fully featured Fuse implementation of UFS as part of a recent.
That works.
And Fuse can be used inside a jail, as far as I know.
Yeah, it does.
It used to be possible. I haven't used it in a while. The other thing, is that there's a truly cursed Fuse server, which is like a half of a Linux kernel as a Fuse server, so that you can use XFS, X4 with journaling and so on, JFS2 and whatever legacy file systems you may have to deal with, which includes MS-DOS-FS, which, because it includes so much of the Linux kernel, of course it's GPL2, but it also has all of caching logic and so on, so that it is a bit smarter than straightforward MS-DOS-FS or exFAT implementation.
What's the name of that device, that Byzantine beast?
LKL something, Fuse. Look in the fairly new file system category in report tree. Should be there. The other
Could you bring it up on FreeBSD? Could you bring it up on FreeBSD as a?
A Fuse server is a port.
Okay, it's in. Okay, cool.
It's a port, so it's one package install away.
Oh, no kidding. Oh,
and the other thing you can do is to have your trusted outside created Beehive guest image and use one guest image to prepare the other one. That would be the cleaner solution, but a bit more so that you have your pre-created little FreeBSD guest image, you boot off that, and then you attach the other disk, or you attach both and make sure the boot order is correct. And then you can do what you've described to create the Beehive guest to install another Beehive guest.
That's exactly what I've been doing with Imagine, where I create one UFS image with a bunch of installer and configuration goodies and then boot to it and splat down a ZFS image.
And as long as you don't have to kind of modify it from the outside, you can use something like makefs to generate the UFS or ZFS image. From Michael's expression, I guess he went down that road.
Very much. Take a look at the code. It's using all of the stock release user source release engineering tools, which have makefs and goodies to make the VM images.
This kind of automation is an all or nothing proposition. You can't just go in there and then modify the image and keep the workflow.
Okay. I will look for that bit in fresh ports. You're kind of explaining my joke to me on all things I've been working on, of like narrowing, here are your sources, here are your VM images, here's your deployment, all in like 2 or 3 steps.
So I think I found it in ports. It's called fusefs-lkl. Linux is a library.
Oh wow. Okay. Is there like cool, thank you. LKL.
I suppose that's it, right? Is it or is it not?
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Fusefs-lkl. Pardon my temporary formatting.
That looks pretty cool.
It's a bit outdated, as you can see from the version number.
Okay.
but that's because it's
Goodness.
so invasive to the kernel to hack it into shape. And it's only user space process.
Oh, November. Okay.
That's gonna be fast. Okay.
Well, yes and
Whoa.
no.
Yeah, of course not.
I mean, it's still Fuse, but it has all of the smarts the Linux kernel has about I/O scheduling and read ahead and caching.
Okay.
So, meaning, yeah, it is bloated. It is limited by the indirections, but it's not as dumb as a reference implementation fusefs driver, which only starts looking up metadata from the backing disk device the moment you ask for it. And no, there is a caching layer in there.
Oh dear.
So
Okay,
yeah,
that is
it's
fascinating.
cursed beyond belief, but
Huh.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah,
Let's
well,
check
thank
that
you
out.
for
Yeah.
that. Welcome, Matthew. Do you have anything you want to talk about? We've just been kind of sharing our little holiday projects and other goodies. We'll get to the Chinese docs after we go through the wetware that is Matthew. You're now muted, having been previously unmuted, but no worries, no pressure. So, Chris, did you find the Chinese documentation?
Yeah, actually, that was raised on the mailing list, and yeah, ni hao, yeah. I figured I wanna share this with you guys because we've been talking about documentation in the past, and this guy basically announced on the mailing list that there might also be a strong interest in taking a look at that, particularly for end users of FreeBSD. Obviously, yes, it's in Chinese, but the intention of that work apparently is not being a duplicate or a translation of the handbook, but rather be tailored to people who use FreeBSD or BSDs in general on notebooks and workstations. And I think it's another source, just to check out maybe. I've just started to look at it, and there's a bunch of stuff in there. I do not even understand or know how it is licensed. To be honest, I haven't figured that out yet. But I'm kind of in luck because my wife's Chinese, so I have a person to ask for help with that.
Cool. Fascinating. Do we know what, shall we say, city or country it is out of?
That is definitely originating from China, if you ask me, because
mainland. Got it.
all the mainline, all the contexts are basically tied into that.
What?
But it's hosted on GitHub.
What was that?
It's hosted on GitHub. Let's take a peek.
Oh, it's hosted on GitHub. It's hosted on Gitbook. Yeah. That's correct.
There we go.
They have the code on GitHub as well. I can share that if you're interested.
This link might be it. I just hit FreeBSD ask.
Yes, that's it.
Interesting find, and yes, documentation is always a hot topic. Cool. Thank you.
Great. And actually, speaking about documentation, I wanted to ask you guys whether you have any pointers on PKG-base that you can recommend aside from the wiki.
Slowly myself, and we're trying to add to it. And actually, I can throw in my discoveries on where the make packages output actually is. And funny, it doesn't have a path that matches the one in the repo. So yeah, you are the documentation, whether you like it or not. So do you have questions? How about that?
My intention is to, get started and try it out. And
okay.
I'm just looking for pointers, really. Obviously, my first go-to place would be the wiki, but if there's anything else that you can recommend, I would be very interested in that.
So having busted my butt on this for 2 weeks or so, download the OccamBSD repo on a clean machine with 14 sources perhaps, but that's optional. Run the test suite, run the first test, which puts a 15 current package base VM in it, and then asks if you want to boot it. There's like essentially 2 steps. Pull it down, run it. So I can give a demo of that later if you like, because I've been trying to make that as streamlined as possible because I don't want to sit there turning 1,000 knobs just to like get to one thing. And then if I want to turn a different knob, I start over from the beginning. So I've automated all of that. Don't make me wake up this machine. Go ahead. Matthew, do you have a topic or anything, or are you just flying the wall? Okay, machine booted, had battery power, just flying the wall. Welcome. So John, if it's your first meeting, you can drop questions in the doc, even out of band during 3 a.m. your time. And if they're interesting, we'll get to them. Dave, you have some Ansible-jails updates.
Oh, yeah. So the background for my ansible-jails stuff is it's probably close to, if not older than a decade old now. So it has some bad habits in it. And the original version of it was done for IOCell and then refactored out to not use IOCell directly. And ansible-jails is kind of a new version of that from a couple of years ago. And the 2 big things I've added for this is over the holidays was it was really designed in a very Ansible-ish fashion where it does one thing and then the next and then the next. And when you're running systems that have maybe 10, 40, 50, 100 jails on it, that doesn't make sense. So the code has been slightly modified now so that you have to run the template once, but once the template is run, you can actually deploy multiple jails in parallel, which has been pretty neat. Ansible might not be happy with that, but certainly this module is that's been good fun.
So you've dusted it off and you're looking at modernizing it, or what?
Oh no, so the IOCell stuff is long gone.
Okay.
This is the version 2 of that, done from I think like 2 years ago, roughly, something like that, maybe 3 years ago.
202, no date on it. Okay. Looking at the log. Oh, 9 days ago. Here we go. Yeah, okay. Go, Dave, go.
Yeah, so 1.0 was like end of last year. I said this is ridiculous being at 0.4.
Okay. 1 year, 9. Cool. That's Ansible controlling jails controlling Ansible, or something in between?
Ansible controlling jails. So the idea is you've got a bunch of systems that you're going to run jails on, and you know what jail is going to be deployed where.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see. I've got at least 2 flies on the wall. That's cool. Let's see. Skip this version. SSH. Jump in. CD/. I'm happy to give a quick demo, but this is your call, not mine. Gee, the pressure's killing me. Okay, fine. Do you see top?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the OccamBSD repo, which has been actually bringing in stuff. So you find Imagine here, you find Propagate here, which is a new concept, and they're all here instead of like a bunch of separate projects because they all chain into each other. So I've added, let's see. I don't know who Jared is, but thank you, Jared. Jared just added a feature to use awk to do dependency graphing. And so somewhat in support of them, I created I modified my primitive test suite, which is just very verbose, to having a few functions such as cleanups and asking the user what to do, and then having a much shorter syntax rather than a full page of text per test, but to a very simple. So synopsis, create a 15 current package-based VM image. Okay, so here's the command you'd normally run, but this is a wrapper to it that does a little cleanup. Here, it asks you if you actually want to do it or just move on to the next test, and then a boot script, which is getting fleshed out, and running one boot may blow all your console and stuff, and it may stop the entire process of running the test suite, but just pick up where you left off. it's not super incremental. It's like clean up, run, as opposed to, oh, let's incrementally say, hey, we completed the build part, but not the VM image part. That's a whole different bucket of whatever. So let's just do test suite, see if I can put my money where my mouth is. Create that. Yeah, okay. So it runs through the things and the things. It first grabs package. Thank you, Jan, again for all of your help with
Can I
this.
jump in with a question really
Yes,
quickly?
please, absolutely.
Because I saw you have a setup for 14.2 and one for 15.
Yeah.
The one for 15 already works with PKG base, and the 14.2 does not yet. Is that correct?
They do. No, they totally do. They should
all
be
right.
both
So it
fine.
Oh, okay.
This I learned. The make image supports an accidental devfs under UFS, but not under ZFS. And so Mark Johnson is looking at that. And I kept bumping into failed boot builds. Okay, that looks familiar. Oh, so far so good. Are we going to get past mount root? Oh, okay. Root, no password, package info. Okay. So, Chris, to answer your question, there are like 2 commands to just get it up and running.
Cool, yeah. Okay.
This was a hell of a lot of pedantic work figuring out, okay, what this. So things like Etsy /package, because the 3 package developers understand all this really well. The rest of us are left to manual pages written by the package developers. So things like more FreeBSD base. Okay, so gee, thank you, Jan, pointing out that we can have a priority that says, hey, I care about this one. I ignore the base one, which at least to its credit, it shows how to disable that in like user local package, Etsy package. Kick it into latest for 15, although it's smart enough to do 14.2 and parse the little endings and do whatever, which does raise a question for Dave, like when you have the sloppy versioning and the firm versioning, is that simply a path and it's left to the user, or is actual code choosing and appending and all that nonsense?
It's a path. There's like release _1, release _2, which correlates to FreeBSD 14.1 release package base, and 14 14.2 package base.
So to their credit, they say you can.
There isn't there.
What's it? I'm sorry, I spoke. Sorry.
Go ahead. Base is full of arcane lore.
Well, yeah, understood by like 4, maybe 5 now people. So to their credit, they say, oh, you can just do a local disable. So I disable the one so that every time you update, it's not like pushing on that. And from the craziness department, I don't think I have networking, but just one sec. I did a primitive best effort update script that handles some of the package saves and hopefully does the right thing. Yes, Jan.
Okay, once you have installed your system like that, you shouldn't accumulate lots of package save files on an upgrade.
Is that from the wiki page or the manual page? Because this is all new territory. It's like I literally don't know what the behavior will be.
It's just however, basically package upgrade does a merge between the old version, your config, and the new, and then or it just says, okay, depending on how it's annotated, and yeah.
Okay.
But once the big problem is the package register phase. If you have an existing installation, if you do an initial installation with package base, that's actually easier because then you can just remove like half a dozen files you needed to run the package install in /etc. And unlike normally where the package save is the existing configuration moved out of its place and you have to move it back to retain your system, if you do that with a very minimal /etc where you have like a dummy user and groups files and maybe a resolve conf, then in the compiled user and group database, then yeah, you don't have to deal with that problem because you can just delete the package saves because they're only there to get you the content of the repository. Yeah.
Cool. I see. I've got probably a stray mark, whatever.
Typo in line.
A typo. No. So I'll take a peek at that. Let's see. Grab. Rep Debian. Oh, of course, Debian in test suite. Okay, so that's my syntax. Okay, so I'm not going to just cheat and paste it in there. So this is going through Imagine, which does retrieval and all kinds of stuff originally for FreeBSD, but then I'm like, well, screw it. Other operating systems have such things. Gosh, let's do copy essay. Is this going to work? Impress. Oh, what's that? That looks familiar. Ooh, okay. That's under Beehive, although it'll do QEMU for things like ARM-based things. Root. Okay. It's Debian in a few seconds there. Top, of course. DF. Oh, they have DF. Oh. Yeah, that's a taste of shut down dash P down. So I'm like, I'm shut down, of course. It's not. I'm impatient. So I'm like, I want to futz with Debian. Well, I want it in just a few minutes, not like forever. So if I do crazy things like that's the thing. Any questions regarding that? And Chris, does that kind of give a taste? Router OS.
Yeah,
this one's funny in that it's kind of small. So, oh, let's see. Okay. La 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 la. Beehive. Router OS ext4. I had to do some boot device acrobatics for them. They had some crazy. Oh, it's booted. Sorry. What was the question?
Get out of date.
Out of date? That's their downloaded current one.
7.16.2 is the latest.
Not in their download repo unless I need to update it in the thingamabob. No. Okay. Yeah.
What is Router OS based off? Is it a
they claim
Linux
a Debian kernel and their own, almost their own userland, so you really don't get much Linuxy stuff. You get Jan, you might have a better answer, but
it's a questionable GPL interpretation as a kernel bundled with a completely custom userland. There is no bash there for you to drop in. And in recent-ish versions on AMD 64 or ARM, you can use a Docker-like container runtime to run stuff directly without a hypervisor. Which is kind of neat if you have a little 50 euro board with multiple 1 gig interfaces and the option of running something like Pi-hole without an extra Raspberry Pi. Or potentially on a little bigger board, something like Home Assistant, without driving up the power bill much.
Jan, how do I shut down this bad boy?
/system shutdown reboot.
Thank you. So yeah, it being like a kernel and a tiny shell of its own and some networking, it boots in like 1 second. Really? Hold on. 1, 2, that's all EFI. 3, it booted. It's like there's more EFI load than there is OS load.
Have you read Colin's work to get FreeBSD's boot time in Firecracker down?
Bless his heart. I have slightly dabbled, but no, there's more to be done. Chris, I hope that helps answer your question.
That looks cool. I have to check that out. That looks cool.
That's fresh with updates this morning before taking a shower. So I've been really churning it, hence that little typo on line 255. Let me take a look at that right now. Okay, other topics, questions, ideas, concerns, plans for this year. On a recent call, we discussed like periodic topics we'd like to discuss, like dtrace, where it need not be a weekly call, but maybe we hijack one. Thank you for the firecracker link. So I'm all ears. One comment was, let's have our demos ready when wanting to discuss a topic or hack on something, which some have been super prepared. Some have been like, uh-oh, that's a good idea. Let's go faff around, as they say, test. And speaking, did Nick take off? Oh, Nick, Golden Globe winner, took off, but a Blender built animation film from Latvia won first place, top Golden Globe in animation on Monday, which was a big day for Blender and Latvia and games. So there's that. CD slash BSD. Okay. Other ideas, questions, anything? What you got? It's your call, not mine. Oh, am I still sharing? No, I'm not sharing that screen. I can stop that share. I'm on another one, futzing around. So, if I take my time to unlock my phone, we are at what? World time. 1904 UTC, huh? If I forget line 255, and it's not found. That's okay. Here, shell check. Here I come. Which, wow, yeah, shell parsers are easy to trick. Like,
what have you done now?
I have an error on, line 1000 on a 900 line document or file. It's like, yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Other topics.
Only go where no man has gone before.
Exactly. Where no parser has gone before.
Yes, exactly.
Ooh, QMU may have found it. 194. 194. Boom. Oh, yeah. I had an extra quotation mark which sent it off into space. The final frontier. Yep, all fixed. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'll let you as a user run through those. Well, thank you for the great updates, Dave. Mark, I hope being a fly on the wall helps. I don't know if we lost Matthew, but chat's got something. What you got in chat? I'm a clicking.
Yeah, I live off of a cup of coffee all day. Current boot's so fast that my coffee consumption has plummeted.
Bingo.
Just one?
Just one? Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. Borderline t-shirt. You've got a formative t-shirt idea there. Okay, appreciate it. Well, thank you, everyone. We are at 6 after. I'm going to call it. I'm happy to stick around a few, but it's also a big day. It's start of the year. All the things got to look alive. I've clicked about 8 times at the number there. Okay, there we go. 0606. Boom. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one. I'm going to stop this here recording. Who wants the pleasure?
Like and subscribe.
Thank
Like and
you,
subscribe.
Chris. First of the year.
Yes.